The next bill on special orders is number 146 on general orders, Senate File 1307, Senator Herr.
Madam President, this bill, Senate File 1307, is a business-friendly bill, an agency bill from the Minnesota Department of Human Rights seeking to make small changes in the provision of the department to reduce the time frames for the issuance of certificate of compliance from 30 days to 15 days. The department currently already processes nearly 75% of all certificates within 15 days and anticipate implementing best practices to achieve issuing all certificates within the specified time frame. This compliance is pertaining to the Affirmative Action Plan under Minnesota Human Rights Act. Organizations that have more than 40 full-time employees in Minnesota on a single working day during the previous 12 months must have a certificate of compliance issued by the Commissioner of the Department of Human Rights before a state contract can be executed. Again, the scope of this bill is only to make minor changes from 30 days to 15 days for operational efficiency, which will expedite governmental service to the public, to the business, and the contractor. So, Senators and Madam President, I ask for your support.
Is there any discussion? Senator Hall.
Thank you, Madam President. Would Senator Herr take a question?
Senator Herr, will you yield? Senator Herr will yield. Senator Hall.
Thank you. Senator Herr, could you tell me how fast the department at this point is able to respond to the certificates? They have up to 30 days. Are they able to respond within 15 days now?
Senator Herr.
Senator Hall, Madam President, currently they already processed nearly 75% of all the certificates within 15 days. So, yep, they will be able to.
Senator Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Herr. So the idea is to get them to do the last 25% within 15 days. Is that then correct, Senator Herr?
Senator Herr.
That is correct.
Is there any more discussion? Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Madam President. Will the author yield?
Senator Herr will yield. Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator Herr, how many full-time employees actually perform this particular function for our state?
Senator Herr.
I'm not the commissioner of the department, so I won't know all the exact number. But I'm sure it's available for the public, and if you check on the website.
Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Senator Herr. The reason I ask this question is because when you budget your labor allocation, you do it based on the amount of time needed. And right now they're complying 75% of the time, which sounds good. But if you reduce that timeline to 15 days, if you don't have enough FTEs, you may already have either a compliance issue or you may have to start hiring FTEs in order to comply with the 15-day requirement. So I have serious reservations about this because without knowing the number of FTEs, if let's say hypothetically the number of FTEs was 10 and they were able to complete it, but if 2 of them go on vacation, 1 of them has a sick child, you suddenly don't have the same labor requirement, but you do have the requirement to perform this function within 15 days, which just because of simple happenstance of how the labor market works, you may not have the labor to perform this, and now we will have our government out of compliance where if you would normally just leave it at 30 days, they'd be able to perform this function. So if Senator Herr does have that number, I'd certainly like to hear it.
Senator Herr.
Senator Osmek and Madam President, I recall the commissioners testified in the Judiciary Committee that the department doesn't need additional FTE to be able to reach the goal of 15 days.
Is there any more discussion? Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam President. Would Senator Hawj yield to a question?
Senator will yield. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you. I would like to ask the question about the repealer, in particular, Subpart 3, insufficient information. I consider this a very valuable rule. It says, a business or firm whose submission does not meet the requirements of Subpart 1 shall be notified within 15 days that its submission must be revised. The notifications shall state specifically how the submission fails to meet the requirements of Subpart 1. Certificates of compliance shall be issued 15 days after the department has received a revised submission which complies with Subpart 1. With the repeal of Subpart 3, how would that affect the situations that are stated here? Perchance their submission does not meet the requirements on their initial application.
Senator Herr.
Senator Kiffmeyer, Madam Chair, mainly if the applicant doesn't meet the requirement, then they will receive a notice within the 15 days period.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam President. Then I would like to make an oral amendment on line 2.24, delete after the number 2, delete and 3, comma.
Do you want that repeated? Okay. The Secretary will report the oral amendment.
Senator Kiffmeyer moves to amend Senate File 1307 as follows. Page 2, line 24, delete subparts 2 and 3R and insert subpart 2 is.
Are there any questions on that? Senator Latz.
Madam President, will Senator Kiffmeyer yield?
Senator Kiffmeyer will yield. Senator Latz.
Senator Kiffmeyer, I mean, this language, I assume, was originally presented by the Department of Human Rights, and I would assume they know best what language is duplicative and still necessary given the statutory changes they propose. Can you inform the body whether Subpart 3 may be duplicative of the language that is now being put into the statute with regard to deficiency notices and the timeframes?
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Madam President and Senator Latz, that's why I started out by asking the question about its effect, and I felt that the answer left me in doubt. And so, to be fair to folks who are trying to comply, that is why I thought it would be best to eliminate the repeal of Subdivision 3 until we know the answer to that question.
Senator Latz.
Madam President, I think that the better practice, rather than repealing a provision in the bill because there's some doubt about whether or not that repealer needs to be done, is that we should get a more certain answer to the question, because repealing it might actually have a negative impact on the way the law is proposed to work. And generally, when these things are drafted, they're drafted by the department or they are drafted through Senate Counsel or the Revisor's Office, and they do a pretty good job of cross-referencing these things and determining, what's duplicative, what's in conflict, and so on when they're deciding what repealers need to be implemented. I mean, I'm going to look up what you've got right now as a proposal, and if you really want to move forward with your proposed amendment this time, I'd ask perhaps we could lay the bill over for a couple of other bills to be heard, and I can look this up and maybe we can get a little more definitive answer to your question rather than proceeding with a deletion of a repealer in the bill.
Let's hear from Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam President. I think my point is along the same lines as Senator Latz. If you look at lines 2.9 to 2.22, you see that notice is required. That's picked up in the statute. Now, it's not to the same level of detail as in subpart 3, where there's a requirement that the notification shall state specifically how the submission fails to meet the requirements of subpart 1. Perhaps, I mean, I understand Senator Kiffmeyer's point, but of a business failing to receive notice, but I think that's picked up in the statute. But maybe the better solution would be simply to pick up that sentence out of subpart 3, the sentence, that second sentence that says the notification shall state specifically how the submission fails to meet the requirements of subpart 1. That would be my suggestion, Madam President.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be very glad to take some time here to do exactly that. I think those are excellent suggestions to address the concern, if that's okay with the author.
Senator, would you like to lay over your bill temporarily? Right on the table.
Madam President, yes.
Senate File 1307 is laid on the table. It's a motion. All those in favor say, the motion is to lay Senate File 1307 on the table. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion prevails. We revert now to Senate File 1307, Senator Herr.
Madam President, I'd like to take my Senate File 1307 off the table.
Senator Herr moves to take 1307 off the table. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam President, and I would like to withdraw my oral amendment.
The amendment's been withdrawn.
And then, Madam President, I would like to move Amendment A53.
The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Kiffmeyer moves to amend Senate File number 1307 as follows, page 2, line 22, insert, this is the A53 amendment.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate very much working with Senator Herr and also Senator Latz and Dibble and the Revisor's Office on getting the proper language to take care of this matter. And so the effect of this is to continue the repealer, but to take language from the repealer and put it into statute. And so that is what we have here in front of you. It preserves current procedure, current rule, but just moves it into the statute. And I ask for your green vote. Thank you.
Senator Herr.
Madam President, I really appreciate Senator Kiffmeyer for go beyond the oral amendment and create this new amendment, and I will accept it as a friendly amendment.
Is there any other discussion on the A53 amendment? All those in favor? Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to add my voice of thanks. Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer, for paying attention, having a sharp eye, and our ability to do a little quick problem solving and troubleshooting on the floor. This is a good amendment.
All those, any other discussion on the A53? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Is there any more discussion on Senate File 1307? The Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File number 1307, a bill for an act relating to human rights, changing provisions for certain certificates of compliance.
The Secretary will take the roll on Senate File 1307. All members having voted who desire to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 57 in favor and 3 opposed, the motion prevails. The bill is passed and its title agreed to.